Welcome to the culture class.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Jonathon Pryce, and we're here with another section, episode, however you want to call it, of the Culture Clash. Now, why am I starting so late? Because I was helping my grandparents out. Because, family does come first. But on to the important matter. So, welcome again to another unflinching episode of the Culture Clash on the Pryce podcast. Tonight, we confront one of the most consequential and least honestly discussed crisis, facing our nation. And I need to lift this up some more. Wow. That'll be fine. I'll fix that word later. Anywho. The collapse of masculinity itself. Now, from the biblical model as a man, as a provider, protector, and spiritual leader, to a diagnosis, a punchline, and a problem insist must be managed. Medicated on medicated or erased. Now, we will explain the historical foundations of manhood and its transformations, the ideological institutional shifts that reframed masculinity from a calling to be stewarded into a pathology to be treated, and the profound tensions that it creates with fatherhood, mental health, family formation, the nuclear family, and the moral fabric of a free society that we have here in the United States of America. The best country in the world. And we will make it great again. Now we proceed without evasion, without ideological slogans, and without allegiance to any faction, any side, any however you want to call it, and to anything else. Now we proceed with only history, empirical data, and critical analysis, and a clear eye assessment of a long-term implications for the United States in 2026 and beyond. Sorry, I'm trying to fix some stuff around here. Oh my lord. Stuff got moved around. But we good. We straight. We are great. Anywho. So, we have the historical foundation. What manhood was built on? We have the biblical model, which is the provider, the protector, the spiritual leader. Galatians 2:15, Ephesians 5:25, 1 Timothy 5:8. Excuse me. Now, we go back to what a man is. What is a man? Who is a man? For much of America's history and the broader Western and Judeo Christian tradition before it, masculinity, what it meant to be a man, rested on a clear, loaded, bearing foundation. It is very simple. Very, very, very simple. Man was made in the image of God, given dominion and responsibility in the same breath. Genesis 1:27, Genesis 2:15. He was not defined by dominance for its own sake, but by the weight he was expected to carry, which was what? Like I said before, being a provider, a protector, that spiritual head of his household, a man whose word and presence meant something to the people who depended on it. And him, mostly. This wasn't an abstract philosophical preference, it was load bearing. It held up families, churches, communities, and the entire architecture of society that depended on men showing up, working, defending, excuse me, and staying as well, which black fathers have a tendency of not doing. So we gotta fix that. All right. All right. Now, scripture didn't romanticize masculinity, it directed it. Watch ye steadfast in the faith, quit you like men, be strong. 1 Corinthians 16:13 is not a suggestion toward swagger. It's a call to vigilance. Yeah, vigilance. Why does it not sound right? Anyway, it's called to that word, courage and steadfastness in service of others. Ow, what the heck? Sorry, guys. Something's like pricking me on my finger, and I do not see what it is. We'll find out later on. Now, the purpose of masculine strength, when rightly ordered, was never to dominate. It was to protect and provide so others could flourish. A father's strength existed for the children's safety. A husband's strength existed for his wife's honor. A community's strong men existed to build and defend, not to terrorize. That distinction, strength in service of others versus strength for its own sake, is precisely the line this culture has spent decades blurring, which is why this moment cannot be understood as merely men behaving badly or as toxic masculinity. Okay, it's categorically different from every prior cultural conversation about manhood. Now, consider a few concrete historical examples of how deeply this ran through ordinary life. The father who taught the trade. For generations, a boy became a man by working alongside his father in the field, the shop, the family business. Manhood wasn't taught in a classroom or a seminar, it was transmitted through apprenticeship, side by side over years. The boy learned not just a skill, but a posture toward responsibility, which is something that is lost in this generation. It is crazy and sad. Very, very sad. Let's get back to it, okay? At the very least. All right, let's get back to that. Now, we also have the rite of passage. Now, whether through military service, a first job, marriage, or formal recognition in the church, cultures across history marked the transition from boy to men deliberately. And in today's day and age, it says when you're 18, you're a man. Look, honestly, a boy can become a man, I say 15. 15 years old. Now, that does not mean that the law should be changed. I'm just saying that a man is a man, okay? He can be considered a man rightfully when he's taught up right at the very low age of 15. Very low age. And then in today's day and age, wait until he actually becomes a man by law. And then, we could continue going on and go from there. Now, it was not assumed to happen automatically. Like I said, not when you turn 18, you're just automatically a man and don't know anything that it becomes to act or what it takes to actually be a man. I had to say it like that. I had to. Okay. I just had to. See if I can move this. There we go. I just had to say it like that because why not? Communities understood that manhood had not had to be formed. It had to be tested. It had to be confirmed, not simply waited for. That's why I said, if this is done right, a man can be called a man by the age, or sorry, a boy can be called a man by the age of 15. But nowadays we have 40-year-old boys who live in a man's body but still act like a boy. Turn down that brightness. Oh my lord. Almost blinded me. But anyway, the father, as head of the household, held accountability. Held accountable by not just his wife or the community or the church, but by God. He was held accountable. Scripture places real weight on the man who, sorry, fails to provide. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. 1 Timothy 5:8. Now, that is not soft language like, oh, oh no. No, it's not soft whatsoever. It is here to slap men in the face and be like, you better start providing for your family or else you just a bum. Okay. Now there's a much harsher word I'm thinking of saying, but I'm gonna save it, okay? I'm gonna save you guys the trouble of hearing it, okay? But it reflects a society that understood masculine responsibilities as a moral and spiritual obligation, not an optional lifestyle preference. Like I said, there's like 40-year-old men who should really be wise, really that sage type of level of kind of knowledge of wiseness, however you want to say it. They should be that is what a man is, or that's what they physically look like. But when you actually talk to them, they're just weak little sissies that just want to walk around, act like they're men, and try to say, "Oh yeah, you can," because I've been with this many women. I know the game, and all. They're like, "Yo, shut up! You don't know jack squat." And why would I ever listen to you when you don't live the life? You don't live as an example. What's the example? And yes, I'm mostly talking about black people here because I am a black man and I'm see the black community and I'm very disappointed in it. But what I see, I'm just like, brother, you're not living the life I want to live, the life I want to have. Why should I listen to you when you just go around want to be sleep with all these other different women who don't know how to close their legs and aren't really women? They're just little girls want to act like little princesses trying to look for their father because they never had one, because people like those 40-year-old men, boys actually, 40-year-old little boys want to just have fun, have sex with some random girl, leave her alone, get her, make her pregnant, not even be in the child's life, want to run off somewhere and just be a bum. Yo, I'm gonna continue because whew, I could go on about it, but we're not doing that right now, all right? But a man is the elder at the gate. Wisdom, literature repeatedly places mature men in positions of communal responsibility. Why is that? They're judging disputes, defending the vulnerable, modeling integrity for the next generation, modeling what it means to be a man for the next generation. Not to sleep around with a bunch of other different women. Not even women. Like I said before, a bunch of the different girls in women bodies who wants to be treated like a princess, and all they can't really cook. Can't really make a peanut butter jelly sandwich to save their lives. No, you just want to instead that's how you want to live life. That's how you want to share. That's how you want your example to be when on honesty, you're just a hack, okay? You're nothing special. And really, if there are little boys who are looking up to you, I'm just gonna say I feel sorry for those boys. I really do. I 100% feel sorry for them. They need to find somebody better. Really do. Fight me all you want. I don't really care. Masculine maturity was assumed to be for the community, not withdrawn from it. And that's what men do. Well, men do. What can I say? Now, each of these institutions, the family worship, workshop, the rite of passage, the household, the council of elders, was quietly built on the same unspoken assumption: the masculine strength, rightly formed, was a public good. That assumption is not minor cultural detail we can casually discard. It is the foundation. An enormous amount of Western family and civic life was poured onto. And it is precisely that foundation, not merely a set of behaviors or stereotypes, that the last 60 years have worked systematically to dismantle. It's not. It's not 100%. Now, the turning point: when fatherhood left the home. I mentioned this before. This look, we about to start actually diving into what actually meant when real men decided not to be men, and they wanted to revert back to the little boy that they was and do whatever they want, not care about the responsibility, not care about being accountable for anything, and just want to be, sorry for my French, but a little bitch. Just saying. All right. Now the pivotal points, pivotal, the turning pivotal point, pivotal turning point. There we go. Arrived first with the industrialization, which physically removed fathers from the home and the daily presence their sons had once learned from, and accelerated through the cultural revolutions of the 1960s and beyond, drawn from both economic shifts and progressive frameworks that reframed the traditional family structure as an instrument of oppression. These developments recast masculinity not as a calling to be formed, but as a set of arbitrary exclusionary behaviors to be corrected. The sexual revolution decoupled sex from marriage and fatherhood from commitment. No fault divorce, introduced state by state beginning in the late 1960s, made with the dissolution of the family unit dramatically easier, and welfare policies structured through the following decades often penalized two-parent households financially, incentivizing fathers' absence in exactly the communities that could least afford it. The black community most definitely got hit by it. And we see the effects of it. More kids on drugs, more kids out there doing gang, stupid bullshit. Sorry for my language, but honestly, this stuff is what really gets me mad. It's what really gets me mad. Because I'm just like, I'm trying to be better than the stereotypical black man. And it's hard to do that when the label follows you around. It really, it's, yeah. But a real world example that crystallized this shift, the transformation of the American sitcom father. In the 1950s and 60s, the television father, think the steady, respected head of the household, was portrayed as competent, wise, and worth listening to. By the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s, that same architect had been almost entirely replaced by the bumbling dad. Incompetent, mocked by his own children, rescued by his wife's common sense. And you could really think about it. And think about the media. Think about burnt Homer from The Simpsons. That guy was a bubbling fool. You think about um that cartoon was just in my head. No, not American Dad. Family Guy. The dad was fat. Kids let the kids run right over him, even the dog. And then you had Lois, just the competent one. And look, I'm not trying to mock women or anything like that, but women are not we're not designed to be men. They weren't designed to have all these masculine traits. No, that was the guy's responsibility. That was the man's responsibility. And yet, you throw it away for what? Some stupid BS? It was not a small entertainment trend. It was a decades long cultural rehearsal of the message that fathers are unnecessary, foolish, or optional. Like I said, Family Guy, The Simpsons, they definitely portray that. And in some instances, American Dad. I mean, yes, those shows were hilarious, gotta laugh. But deep down, it was shaping boys' minds that men are incompetent fools, and that women are the ones who are really competent, the ones who are wise, the ones who are the head of the household. Even though God called us to be that, it doesn't make sense. It delivered into tens of millions of homes week after week to children who absorbed it as normal. And now look at the results. Look at the parents raising up the kids today. Man, some of y'all are just soft little wussies. Oh my gosh, man. Sheesh, I personally can't handle it. I don't know how you you let this happen. It's crazy. The progressive frameworks in academia, media, and eventually clinical psychology began training the traditional masculine role not as a structure that could be misused, as any structure can. Don't get me wrong. There are many structures that can be misused, be treated wrongly, all that other type of stuff, right? But masculinity misused as inherently suspect, a vintage of patriarchy to be dismantled, broken down, destroyed, rather than a calling to be redirected, a foundation to be built on, a sturdy rock that no matter what happens, no matter how bad the wind sways left or right, up, down, side to side, front, back, doesn't matter. They wanted media, especially, wanted men to be looked as weak, bumbling dumbasses. What begins as legitimate criticism of genuine abuse of male authority, and yes, I know it definitely happened. Domestic abuse is real, and men are more physically stronger, so obviously, it tends for the man to be able to control that anger, control himself, to be a man. And I understand completely. Yes, I understand. But all of that evolved into a wholesome reframing of masculine responsibility itself as the problem. See, masculinity was not the problem, it was men who abused what God called them to do, the men who let their ego run wild, let pride take control of them instead of um having the heart, having the spirit, the Holy Spirit realign them to God's purpose, to God's path, and to make sure they're able to sit on the right throne of God. Now, if strength, stoicism, and headship are inherently oppressive, then the corrective is not better man. It's less masculinity. Sometimes a full stop to masculinity. Now, the institutional capture of how masculinity got redefined as a pathology. The cultural and institutional capture accelerated through education, media, and eventually clinical psychology itself. The term toxic masculinity, originally coined to describe specific harmful behaviors, was eventually steadily broadened until it functioned as a catch all. All masculinity is toxic, no matter what it is. It's toxic. And yes, I have to be very dramatic here because this is stuff that destroys our society. This destroys America. This destroys communities. It destroys everything. And to we need to first know the problem, analyze the problem, understand the problem, then fix the problem. And through the fixing, you look at answers. What possibility can we take to to get to the right solution, right? And we all know what the solution was, because guess what? If we turn back time and look through history of what it meant to be masculine, there's the solution. So easy. Very easy to find. Very easy. Now, collapsing generally destructive behavior, abuse, violence, corrosion, together with healthy, even necessary masculine traits, assertiveness, risk tolerance, emotional stoicism under pressure, and competitive drive. And I will tell you, competitive drive, oh, don't matter what it is, I could be learning it for the first time that day. I swear I could beat the number one person on that sport whatsoever. It could be football, soccer, cricket. So, excuse me, ultimate frisbee, anything. I don't care. I'm very competitive. Hockey, even though I don't know how to skate. Roller skating, anything. I don't care if I could learn. If I could learn it, trust me, if somebody wants to do a one-on-one, I am whooping you, and it don't matter how many times it takes, I will win. That's the competitive drive all boys have, even when they're leading it into manhood. It's just more controlled. We're not just out here, um, yeah, we're not just out here just being very competitive. You're like, yeah, being so loose and all that. Yeah, some people are so losers. We're not out here trying to compete in women's sports. Yes, real men. Okay, real men don't compete in women's sports. We know what a woman is. Just saying. In 2019, the American Psychological Association released guidelines describing traditional masculinity itself, not specific harmful behaviors, but the broader constellation of stoicism, competitiveness, and self reliance as, on the whole, harmful. This was not the fringe blog post. That was the largest professional body of psychologists in the country, placing a clinical stamp on the idea that ordinary masculinity traits are are a mental health liability, somehow, some way, to be corrected rather than a nature to be rightly directed. Look, I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. Now we're gonna get finish this section, and then I will have to get going here soon. But an example of this reframing in practice in the modern American classroom, where boys now trail girls in reading proficiency and high school graduation rates in state after state, and where boys are disciplined, suspended, ex- expelled, medicated for ADHD. Look, even my own brother thought he had ADHD, and I'm just like, bruh, don't be touting the BS now, my guy. As men, we cannot sit still. And I know this because all throughout high school, all throughout school, my leg would not stop shaking whatsoever. If I was not moving in some certain type of way, my leg would shake constantly. Even the teachers got annoyed by it. 100%. 100%. But at a dramatically higher rates than girls for behavior that's a generation earlier would have been considered ordinary boyhood energy. And I'm telling you, it's just boys being boys. We don't need to be suspended. We don't need to be expelled. We don't need to be on medication for ADHD when we don't have it. It's completely retarded, okay? Completely retarded. And look, you guys can say, "Oh my gosh, you're a Christian. You're a Christian. You can't be saying this word." I don't give a flying butt right now. They see there are still some words I control myself from saying, but calling somebody a retard, I'm gonna call him a retard. Okay, look, you guys gotta realize this. I have Jamaican roots. We gonna call it as we see it. All right, we gonna call it as we see it. Okay, just saying, a retard is a retard. Okay, don't hate me for it. If you don't, you could not watch me. You could go watch somebody else, like a retard called Candace Owens. Oh my gosh. Anywho, rather than asking whether an increasingly sedentary, verbal oriented, female majority staff classroom environment might be poorly suited to how boys typically learn and move, the more common institutional response has been to treat the boy as the problem requiring management. Yes, treat boys like all the other girls. Treat the boys like feminine sissies. That's how you solve the problem. Yep, right there. That's how you solve the problem. Corporate HR departments and DEI frameworks followed a similar pattern, treating male coded communication styles, directness, competitiveness, risk taking as bases to be trained out of the workplace rather than traits to be channeled productively. The cumulative effort across school, media, and workplace has been a culture that increasingly tells young men the way you are built is the problem. Now, I would have to end the stream there because I have to go on to another stream. So don't go to Boy Basic Gaming channel. You find me on there where I will be competitive beating these guys in some Dragon Ball Sparking Zero ranked gameplay. So follow me on there, and I will continue this later on in another time, posted up as a video. Podcast episode 71 is on the way. It is on the way. I promise you it's on the way. Okay? It'll probably be released Sunday. But hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more. And keep seeking the kingdom first. God bless you all, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Cut through the class.